Live from Studio 3, and then heavily edited for content, it's Bucco Banter. Introducing your hosts, originally from somewhere near Newcastle and now being a good husband and father when he's not running off by himself to PNC Park, it's Fred Rossano. A Pittsburgh Pirates fan since before he was born and still residing in his parents' basement when he's not sleeping in the Pirates clubhouse, it's Matthew Peaslee. Finally, he may look like a piece of plastic on a stick, but he has a life of his own, and he's the real expert on Bucco Banter. It's Pirate Panda!
Welcome back. It's Season 2 of Bucco Banter, and we're pleased to bring you again our co-hosts for this year, Fred Rossano and Matthew Peaslee.
Hello again, and welcome to Bucco Banter. This is episode 333 of Bucco Banter. My name is Fred Rossano.
And my name is Matthew Peaslee.
And Matt, we are 1 month into the season approximately, and what say you about the Bucs so far?
Well, they stumbled out of the gates, I think it's safe to say that, but they also did that last year and obviously ended up making the playoffs. Stayed above 500 for a little bit through the beginning of April, flirted with that 500 mark. The pitching has been outstanding, the starting pitching, which we kind of expected. Actually, we thought the bullpen might be a little bit stronger, but the starting pitching with A.J. Burnett, Francisco Liriano, and Garrett Cole have been outstanding. The hitting, though, has cost us some games because the pitching keeps us in it, but when the bats can't come around, you obviously can't score runs, and when you can't score runs, you don't win games.
You hate to lose that many games by one run when the starting pitching is that good, because the starting pitching can't be asked to be that good that many games in a row like that. I mean, they've really been outstanding. Hopefully it won't be one of those situations, a guy like A.J. Burnett, who's, it's early in the year, that as the season goes on, starts to tail off a little bit as the workload increases. But I think so far, they have been outstanding. We can only cross our fingers they continue to be that good.
Yeah, both A.J. Burnett and Garrett Cole have earned run averages of under 2. But A.J.'s still looking for his first win. He's given up 1 run a couple times, 2 runs a couple times, but the bats aren't coming around for him.
I think he's 0-4. Is he 0-4? I think, he's 0-4. And he's
1 loss. Or he's got 1 loss. Or he's got more loss, but no decisions just because he leaves when.
I think I was reading somewhere he has the lowest earned run average of the starters in all of Major League Baseball without a
victory. Yeah. And Garrett Cole, on the other hand, I think he's 5-0. He hasn't lost since dating back to last year. I think he's won 8 or 9 straight games.
I think so, too.
But this is the ace we thought he'd develop into. He was the number 1 pick overall in 2011, and I guess we have seen what he can do. Obviously, as a rookie, he was able to pitch in a division series and get a win. And but this is kind of he's 24 now. This is kind of his breakout year. You see Madison Bumgarner and Clayton Kershaw kind of were dominant at this age, and now Garrett Cole's developing into that too.
The hitting, though, is they say it's team slumps and everybody gets hot at the same time. This has just been a team slump over the last, really the whole season. They keep getting a couple guys hitting the ball, and then they tail off while another couple guys. But so far, it's McCutchen again has just been he can't even get over the Mendoza line there.
Yeah,
he's really struggling, and I don't even think I know we talked the last time about his
knee,
possibly his knee being hurt, but it doesn't seem to be that way. He just although he's a slow starter, and it just now is May, early May. So
the other night against the Cardinals, he was kind of limping off after sliding into second base. So we talked and said it might just be nagging injuries. I think the injury just might come in spurts or something where he might feel fine at the beginning of the game, but one little tear here or there, one little. Who knows? But he's still playing through it. But even if he was to sit down for 15 days, go on the disabled list for 2 weeks, just take a break and see.
Well, I think if they thought that would help him, they would do that.
Yeah.
But obviously it must be one of those things that's going to maybe be nagging him. I mean, look, it even started in spring training when he Something he did in spring training early on, or something he didn't do in spring training, caused his knee to hurt, and he missed a couple weeks there. But maybe the way things are now, I'm 99 and 9/10 sure that they wouldn't let something like that happen to him.
Yeah.
If it was something that could easily be cured by rest.
I mean, he has had some days off here and there. I know he had a day game off the day after they had a scheduled day off, so he gets 2 days of rest in a row. They might try to do that more often when they can get him rest. They're off this week one day and just try to rest him. But I just think it would be beneficial for him and the team. Let him sit for 2 weeks. I know they probably won't do it, but let him sit. Put Polanco in center. Put Corey Hart in one of the corner outfields and see what Corey Hart hasn't had that much playing time because the Pirates haven't faced any left-handed hitters.
I think they've only the whole division is just a couple left-handers through the whole division, and the Pirates have a couple of them themselves with Locke and Liriano, but I think the Cubs have one.
Yeah,
that Wood guy, and
I think they've only faced. I think he might have been the only lefty they faced.
Yeah, they faced him twice. So far.
Home and away. But
overall, again, we've. I think last year over the first, they were 5 or 6 under 500 over the first month or so, and they're right around 500 now. So once the hitting comes around, I mean, you can't expect the starting pitching to continue to be that way, but you can't expect that lineup to continue to be that way. That way either. So hopefully in the coming weeks they'll sort of come together a little bit.
Put some runs up and we should be fine.
I would think so too.
Matt and Fred, it's time for a new segment on Bucco Banter called 3 for 3. And take it away, Matt.
Thank you, Pirate Panda. Well, Fred, it is time for 3 for 3. Let's see if we can top out our batting averages and go all the way.
I gotcha.
So lead it off.
The first one I have today is those Alvarez throws, and boy, it's frustrating. Now at first, but he's been making some nice plays at first, but he's already has 6 errors, I believe. A couple of them pretty costly ones. One of them, it was a throwing error to second base, and then he had the goofy thing the other day where the ball went through his glove
in Chicago.
And then right after that, he followed that up with a wild throw to second. And then the other day against the Cardinals,
throws behind.
He made us a nice play at first and then threw it way over Cervelli's.
Oh,
Cervelli's.
Yeah.
And it's just so frustrating. I mean, I know it's a mental thing, but I mean, it's eventually. I don't know what to do. I mean, he can't throw to any base anymore. Yeah. It's crazy.
6 errors already, like third in the majors. I'm reading a book about the Indians, and Jim Thome. He started out as a shortstop actually, and then they moved him to third base, and then obviously he made a name for himself at first base. So he was going through the same problems that Pedro is now, but they made that move when he was still in the minors. So, but obviously Pedro's been in the big leagues for 3-4 years now, and we saw these problems a lot last year.
Well, the guy for the Nationals, Ryan Zimmerman, they've moved him over to first because he's had the same problem too of not being able to throw the ball over to first base. I mean, and they showed some of his highlights, and they were rivaled Alvarez's throws. But hopefully he'll get that solved because it's you can't afford to lose games that way, and they've lost quite a few by a run or two, and that's been the culprit.
Well, here's a point of discussion for another day. Let's get the DH in the National League and make Pedro our DH. Exactly.
Next.
We'll save it next.
What's yours?
My first one is Ring My Bell, in reference to Josh Bell, the 2014 Pirates Minor League Player of the Year. He started this year with the Altoona Curve, and he's tearing it up. He's a first baseman. They moved him from the outfield into first base to give more organizational depth at first, and this is needed if Pedro can't get the job done as a fielding first baseman, but he's batting almost 400 throughout this beginning of the year.
I read somewhere he has had 10 straight, or at one point he had 10 straight multi-hit games.
Yeah, I saw him. I went to Akron the other day and saw him against Akron, and he was 3 for 4 with a couple RBIs. So I think he's the real deal. He still needs some polishing down there, but a couple years from now, he's going to be the Pirates' first baseman and do a good job and be an all-star.
Yeah, hopefully. My second is a team slump, and looking over some of the averages, they're nowhere compared to what they should be or even resemble anywhere around there. I think some people thought that Josh Harrison was going to decline somewhat, and he has.
Mm-hmm.
But now, it's a team-wide slump. They've really struggled to get guys in, especially with guys in scoring position. And everybody goes through it. Usually, you notice it like at the beginning of the year, but the last couple of weeks they've really been struggling. When you think they're going to break out of it, then they come back the next day and they really struggle again and only get like 4 or 5 hits.
They left 18 on base against the Cardinals the other day, and you said it was the most since 1940.
I believe that's what Teak or somebody had said.
That's crazy. But they got 12 hits, which hasn't been happening the past week. But it doesn't
innings, but
it doesn't help when you get 12 hits and only bring in 1 run from that.
Very tough. What's your number 2?
My number 2 goes to the bullpen, Mark Melancon. We've been talking about him, and he's kind of been a topic of discussion recently. He has 5 saves, blew a couple early in the season, and we talk about the velocity coming off his pitches. He's pitching 5 miles per hour slower than what he has been used to. A closer shouldn't have an 88-mile-per-hour fastball. This week he hasn't had many opportunities to pitch.
You know, what's something interesting that I had heard after one of the games, they said, I think Clint Hurdle had touched on this. You remember he pitched in Japan? They had those games in Japan. I don't even remember was that in like November, December? I can't remember.
It was right after the season because some of the World Series players went over there. Like it was early November.
He was one of them. He seems to think that extra push he made, on his arm out there may have caused him to lose some of that velocity, and hopefully he'll be able to build it back up again. But I had forgotten all about that.
Yeah, that wasn't really publicized that well, but at least But that very well could be the extra work in the off season that he wasn't used to.
Mm-hmm. My last one is switch at leadoff, and it was I was kind of surprised. I think we touched on this too the last time.
I was happy but now I'm not so sure.
Polanco's about the only one who has been hitting pretty consistently, and Marte has his hot games, and then he goes cold too. But I was kind of surprised that sort of came out of the blue there, where they put Polanco first and moved Harrison down to second. I don't really understand the reasoning. Maybe I didn't hear what his reasoning for that was. I think they said they wanted him to be more of in a RBI position for Harrison.
Yeah.
I mean, even batting second, I don't know how that would be more of an RBI. But obviously, they know more than I do. So,
well, Hurdle likes to switch the lineup around a lot. Maybe 1 or 2 days in a week he'll stick with the same lineup, but usually you'll see. And
I think managers especially do that when their team's slumping. They try to move guys around. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't.
I'll tell you, I like Sean Rodriguez. When he's in there, he seems to hit the ball and
thrives at a couple different positions there too.
That's good. He's almost like Pedro Alvarez's caddy. He comes in like 6th, 7th, and 8th innings to relieve him at first, but I wouldn't mind seeing him start a few games at first.
Yeah, that's true. What's your last one?
Last one is Cuban Pretzel Dog. If you've been to PNC Park this year, it's the new menu item.
Cuban pretzel.
You buy it out in right field. There's the Riverwalk Grill, and it's fantastic. About a foot-long hot dog on a pretzel bun. Foot-long hot dog with little chopped meats and pepper jack cheese, a little bit of coleslaw and some pickles. It's to die for, like your red velvet cake.
I hate red velvet cake.
It's not bad, but it's just another new thing at PNC Park. There's a lot of new things at PNC Park this year, but if you go, I highly recommend the Cuban Pretzel Dog. Cuban
good.
Pretzel Dog. Stay tuned for our next new segment on Bucco Banter. We're taking you to school.
Okay, folks, are you ready to be schooled? It's Pirate Professor time with Fred, Dr. Cardboard Rossano, and Matthew, Assistant Professor Peaslee. Take it away, guys.
I am Dr. Cardboard, a doctor of cardiology, and he is Assistant Professor Pease.
Working towards my doctorate, but under the tutelage of Doc Cardboard.
Our question today is, what is the thought process of bringing in a reliever at the beginning of an inning rather than waiting for the starter to get into trouble?
Well, Doc, I think some of the thought process behind that is the pitcher might be at his pitch count for that night, around the 6th or 7th inning, if the pitcher's getting close to 100 pitches. And he could just be cruising along, kind of like A.J. Burnett was the other night. He pitched 6 strong innings, but in the 7th inning, Clint Hurdle brought in Archimedes Caminero. Later on that game, he brought in Rob Scahill, just because those relief pitchers haven't got much work over the past couple weeks because the starting pitching has been going pretty deep. So it might have been a combination of him wanting to rest A.J. Burnett, 38-year-old A.J. Burnett, and getting some of his relievers some work because they hadn't received work over the past week because, like I said, the starters have been going pretty deep. So I think it's the pitch count of the starter, he's done for the night after 6 solid innings, 7 solid innings, and it also has to do with getting the relief pitchers their amount of work for that week. How's that, Doc?
Not bad for
I'm
a
getting
first
there.
try. However, I think it's a combination of the two here. I think it's a combination of the starter and the relievers. I think, like they say, you can do everything down in the bullpen there, but it's not the same as coming into a game in a pressure situation like that. And this seems to be a trend with a lot of other teams now of starting a reliever fresh in an inning. I guess it would have to do with, rather than him, I forget the term that Hurdle uses all the time of being not in a pressure situation, but it's sort of like that. He said, where it's crunch time. You don't want to bring a reliever in. You want him to start fresh and be able to build into that inning rather than having to worry about getting guys. It's kind of a new philosophy that a lot of managers seem to favor now. I guess it's partly to take some of the burden off the starters, but I think a lot of times what they do is they almost keep the starters in there too long sometimes and want them. You'll hear it on the announcer will say, "Let us." Oh boy, I'm sure they're hoping he gets out of this inning before running any more trouble or whatever. And so I think it's a combination of the starters and the relievers of just coming into an inning without that extra pressure of worrying about guys on base. And it's true too. You don't want to. They have this system of not wanting to pitch a guy 3 days in a row, especially unless it's like 6 or 7 pitches per inning there, but usually try to stay with one guy the 6th, or one guy the 7th, one guy the 8th, and one guy the 9th. But maybe it's just something that's sort of carried. Become a hot type of thing to do in baseball, whatever. They seem to have some success with it. We'll see. Maybe down the road they'll go back to pulling a guy in the middle of an inning when he's struggling a little bit.
They still do it occasionally, like kind of opening day. Jared Hughes comes in some trouble and gets a couple ground ball outs to finish them off.
I think it sort of plays out in the inning, but it seems like the more of them are trying to really stay with a guy as long as they can and try to have him pitch through that inning rather than rewarming up another. I'm talking about relievers now, going back out there for another inning.
You'll still see the lefty-righty thing where a relief pitcher comes in, faces one batter, calling the lefty. But I think that's enough information for my thesis project, and we're ready to ace it.
Not bad for your first time.
Coming up there to doctor status, but until then, Doc Cardboard is the master.
Don't you know it?
Thank you for watching Bucco Banter. Drive home safely, and don't forget, coming this fall, I'll be starring on The Voice.
Quite on set.
I'm already weakened.
Hey, look me over.
Why did I say that again?
Because you were...
We're shoving it right off.
Who are you, B. Arthur?
B. Arthur? I'm on the phone. I'm doing Bucco Banter. Please vote today. Do you want to keep us to keep these hats?
I like them. You look funny.
Oh, we look like prisoners.